Hi everyone, welcome back to my channel. It's been years, but I'm back and I'm here to stay. And today's case is going to be based upon Annie and Bervil Ekofo. And this is a case that's really stuck with me ever since I first heard about it. And it's a case that kind of ripped through the Congolese community throughout London. There's no one who's Congolese in London or grown up in London who is of Congolese descent that doesn't really know about this case, because it was a shock and alarming, and in the Congolese community, someone knows someone that knows someone. We're quite insular in that way. So, yeah, that's one of the main reasons this case also stuck with me, and I would like to recount it to you guys. I might be a bit rusty because it's my first video back, so I still need to get used to filming and doing this again. But yeah, give me grace. Bear with me. Okay. Bervil was born in North London on the 10th of November in 1994. He was the oldest of 4 siblings, and his parents were Mami Botamba and his dad was Patrick Ekofo. He is described by his loved ones as being bright and never failing to make people around him laugh or smile. He's also known as the life of the party. He's also known as creative and really in love with music and art. And he was known to always be rapping or singing to himself. That's how much he loved it. So much so that he was part of a music group called Dream XXVI, where they would be rapping and singing and like producing music together. So yeah, Bervil was determined to actualize his goals, despite growing up in inner city London, where a lot of the time, especially for a young black boy, it's not common because of the realities of what it's like growing up in inner city London. So he's defying the odds by being determined and wanting to actualize his goals. So much so that he first attended the University of Westminster to study arts and media. But I think with anyone that has studied arts and media, they would say that once you get into it in the academic sense, it kind of strips it from what you fell in love with it for. So I don't know, but I'm just assuming that could have been the case, because he swiftly changed his what they call an American major, or his main course, to psychology, and then changed to University of West. As I said in the beginning, this case is about Bervil and Annie Ekofo, and maybe you guys could have presumed that Annie was probably his mum. In actual fact, no, Annie is his dad's sister, and Annie was married to a man called Jean-Pierre, and between her and Jean-Pierre they had 9 children. They had migrated from Congo since the late 1990s and lived in London, North London, East Finchley to be precise, ever since. She's described as like a gentle, loving matriarch, the glue that keeps the family together. She would never turn anyone away. From all accounts and what I read and seen, she was valued and appreciated and loved deeply by her family and friends. So she made an impact on the lives of people who had the chance of knowing her, whether it be in the friend capacity or family capacity. In particular, her home was one of those homes where you could come and crash, no questions asked. So, yeah, that's Annie. One of Annie's children, 9 children, was a young man called Ryan. And Ryan was known to engage in violent crime as well as drug trafficking. I just want to make a point that this lifestyle was not just exclusive to him, and is still not just exclusive to him. Till today, this is still prevalent, that a lot of young black men also engage in this kind of lifestyle.
It's different from watching movies, isn't it? Like, I've seen a lot of mad things happen, but I've never watched anybody die, innit?
Some of us get angry because you don't want to hit no one. You end up hitting the wall, punching the wall.
We don't always realise it immediately, and too often it goes unaddressed, but the gravity of our experiences eventually catches up with us. I'm reminded of how desensitized I've become to violence. It's unfortunate, of course, but is it surprising? No.
He's on the floor, he's bleeding to death. So I was just there, just watching him literally dying, like, right in front of me.
It's only now in my adulthood that I realised that the things we experienced and accepted as facts of life aren't normal.
And it's usually due to like inequalities within these communities, lack of support given to members of the community as well as in the neighborhood, low value being placed on the well-being of children as well as adult individuals, and just like a lack of leadership or role models, lack of leadership within the communities outside of the homes, because obviously it's not just in home that you are nurtured, it's also outside of the home. So once you leave your house, you're still influenced by outside elements and outside forces, of which there wasn't much positive factors. Being involved in this kind of lifestyle would born feuds amongst groups who live within the same vicinity. So especially when it comes to like drug trafficking, there can only be one supplier for one vicinity, if you get what I mean. And this would happen even within the same borough. So like, let's say there's one estate A and estate B. The supplier from estate B must remain at estate B and only supply at estate B. You can't now try and expand yourself and try supply to estate A, because now you're selling on someone's turf, and the consequences of doing that could result in either being gravely hurt or worst case scenario, death. And then once that would happen, the person who has been hurt, their friends or members of that estate would then try to avenge the hurt or murder of the person who was selling on the opposing turf. I hope that makes sense. And then it just turns into a vicious cycle. So yeah, it's a deadly cycle that is a shame and really a horrible outcome due to the state of what society is like now, especially in inner city London, as this is what I'm talking about at the moment. As I've explained the lifestyle and kind of how the vicious cycle goes along, Ryan, it came about a time that Ryan was actually engaging in a feud with a member of the rival group at the time. And this member was called Obina Ezeoke. I think I'm pronouncing it correctly. Obina Ezeoke. It had been found out that he had been selling on the turf that Ryan resided on. And for this reason, he had to be dealt with. And I'm saying this, he had to be dealt with. And a group of boys badly beat him up to a pulp, to the point where they broke his eye socket and left him for dead. And after this attack, a trophy type of picture was taken, a picture of like the results and the aftermath of him being badly beaten up, of the state of his face had been taken. And this picture had then been shared on social media, more specifically Snapchat. And one of the people who had shared this image was Ryan. And this image was taken and shared in an effort to further humiliate Obina and also send a message to the opposing team or the rival group, and to deter them from selling or wanting to expand what they're selling onto Ryan's turf. I'm not going to say it's Ryan's turf, but the group that Ryan used to engage with turf. After the attack, Obina just laid low, stayed on his turf. He even changed from trafficking a higher class of drugs to a lower class of drugs, so that he just would not be involved in anything to that level of danger. And although he laid low for like 2 years, and although he laid low, he still kept a mental note of who was involved in attacking him and who was also involved in sharing the humiliating picture of him of the aftermath of his attack. I would just like to take this time to make a note on how this case is also an example of toxic masculinity, which is derivative of the patriarchal ideology of what constitutes a real man. And usually what is perceived as a real man under this theory is someone who is stoic, someone who is tough, and someone who is self-sufficient. So that is what a masculine identity is. And when this masculine identity is then undermined, it then results in aggression or violent behaviour.
There's this pressure to be a man, to conform to ideas of masculinity, where one's cries are silent and the battle is internal.
Hitting your adolescence, that's when you start feeling like I'm a bit older, so then it's like I can't cry. More times you gotta be a man.
impacts our minds.
You can't look into my head. Even though it hurts me, I like to sit back and just deal with it myself.
There's no one you can talk to. But sometimes all it takes is for someone to listen to you, for someone to care.
This theory in particular is exclusive to men, and the reason I'm saying that, it's not because I'm being sexist or whatever, guys don't start crying, but it's because statistically men are more inclined to engage in violent crime than women. And some research show that this is even down to like a biological reason, because men have a higher level of testosterone within them in comparison to women who have a higher level of estrogen. So I just wanted to put that note out there before I continue, because it's going to make sense with what I say later on as to what took place and everything like that. As I said, Obinna laid low for 2 years, and within that time he managed to find out where Ryan lived in particular, because it's easy if you live within the same vicinity. You just ask the next person who knows the next person, who will tell you, oh, so and so lives down there. Or you could just, it's easy to find out where someone lived, and Obinna, in that time that he had laid low, had found out where they had lived. On the early morning of Thursday the 15th of September in 2016, at Annie's house, it was a full house. Everyone was home apart from Ryan, and another person who was sleeping and staying over and crashing over at her house was Bervil. Unfortunately for them, Obinna had broken into the house at 6 a.m. in the morning, and he had broken in obviously with the intent to avenge his attack by hurting Ryan. As he broke in, he didn't know that Ryan wasn't home. However, the room that he entered, he mistook Bervil, sleeping Bervil, who had his back turned, and he mistook Bervil for Ryan and shot Bervil at the back of his head, execution style. Yeah, he shot him. Oh, it's really, this case is just horrible. Upon hearing the gunshot, Annie was starkly woken up. She was in the room, sleeping in the room with her husband, obviously. She starkly woke up. She heard the sound coming from the room in which Bervil was in, and she just knew straight away there was trouble. So she tried to rush to the hallway and rush out and try get to him, because she knew that's where he was sleeping. And as she was trying to do that, her husband was trying to restrain her and hold her back, because he knew obviously there's danger outside. Like, there's danger. The shooter might still be in the house, and he was trying to keep her safe. Him and Annie were tussling, and Annie eventually broke out of his restraint and ran into the hallway. And as she ran into the hallway, that is at the same exact time that Obinna was leaving the room in which Bervil was sleeping, and they kind of like accosted each other, and he raised his gun and shot Annie in the chest as she was in the hallway, point blank, and quickly rushed out of the home after doing so, and rushed to a female friend at an estate that was not far from the estate that Annie lived at. This whole ordeal had taken place at 6 a.m. and by 7 a.m. Annie's estate had been swarmed by ambulance, police, as well as family and friends, because unfortunately Bervil and Annie had been pronounced dead at the scene. The ambulance had called police due to them being called over to help with gunshot wounds, and obviously we live in the UK, we're not allowed guns. Guns are not as common as it is, for example, in like America. An investigation ensued almost immediately. Police asked around to like civilians and people that lived within the estate and within and around the estate if they knew anything, had heard anything, and a lot of people knew of the rivalry between Obinna's camp and Ryan's camp. So Obinna's name came up because it was a given, like, well, we know 2 years ago he was badly beaten up, so probably he's involved in it, and his name kept coming up and coming up. So 3 days later, after the shooting, Obinna was arrested by the police on suspicion of murder. And whilst he was in custody, they then raided they then sought to find evidence that would support this allegation. So they went to his house, and when they went to his house, they found the gun that he had actually used underneath his bed. The car he had used to get to and from there, they found gunpowder from the same gun that was found on his bed within that car. They also found gunpowder on the top that he had been wearing, and they found that top at his female friend's house. And even more incriminating, there was CCTV evidence of him coming to the estate and leaving the estate around that time as well. Now, let Obina tell it, he was just chilling around that time, and he has friends on both estates, so he was just chilling around that time. And yes, he did use the car, but he had leased the car from somebody else. So that gunpowder that's found in that car has nothing to do with him, let him tell it. And to deflect from what he was actually being accused of, he then admitted to trafficking Class A drugs, but all the other accusations were not true. Despite him denying it, police still kept him in custody, and from gathering all of the evidence that they did, the suspicion of murder turned into a direct accusation of murder. In the first week of November, a double funeral had been organised and taken place for Annie and Bervil. And this is just a testament to how beautiful of people these two individuals were, because people came out in mass just to say their goodbyes and to show support and to be there for the family and friends. So much so that the church that this funeral was held at had reached over capacity. It transpires that Obina was in custody for 4 years without being sentenced, and this was because in 2017 the trial collapsed because the judge had been suffering from chronic back pain, so it just kept getting postponed until in the 2018 and 2019 trial, the jury just couldn't reach a unanimous verdict or a majority verdict, so the trial had to continue. And then when it was pushed to 2020, it collapsed due to COVID. However, at the latter, and so in October 2020, after 41 hours of deliberation of the jury, Obina was found guilty of both murders by a majority of 11-1. He was sentenced to 2 life sentences, which were to be served consecutively. So the first set of life and then the second set of life, which then adds up to 40 years. And I think that's wonderful. Sorry. Because, not so, well, yeah, I think that's perfect because, yeah. I'm just going to read out a statement for the judge. It was encapsulated as to how grave and horrific his actions were. The judge said, as a family slept, a murderer let himself in and shot Bervil Ekofo, who was asleep and defenceless on a mattress on the floor. Your precise motive for doing so is unclear, although I have no doubt its roots lay in your previous criminal behaviour and desire for revenge. That was the judge's statement when sentencing him. There were also impact statements given at this court proceeding by Mamie and Jean-Pierre. Mamie says, we grow up to accept that death is a part of life and we should embrace it. However, no one really prepares you for burying your child whose life was taken from them by another. Jean-Pierre then also said, I think about Annie every day. I can't believe she is gone. Sometimes I feel I will go mad, and the image of her dying on the floor is always in my head. Bear in mind, he was with Annie since for years and years. They shared 9 children, an actual family, solid family unit, and he had to watch her die like that. He tried to help her, he tried to save her. And that's just a testament to who she was, like the actual phenomenal matriarch, that she would put her life on the line to go for her child, for her nephew, for whoever it be. Just wow. And the innocence and just the sheer robbing of both of their lives, especially Bervil as well. He was so young, he had such a bright future ahead of him, he was so motivated and determined, and it ended the way that it did. So yeah, this is the first case that I've covered coming back, and there will be more to come. And rest in peace to Annie Ekofo and Bervil Ekofo. And I send love and prayers and peace to their family and friends. Thank you very much for watching, guys. Sorry, this case has really done a number on me. It's really made me silent. So if I seem a bit, it's because, yeah, it's one thing to research it and whatnot, but just when you recount it like this and you really reflect over it, it's wild. It's insane. Okay. Bye, guys. Thank you very much.